Hi, this is how to increase your self-esteem today, part 3. So, in the first two parts of this video, we've looked at why human beings, the evolutionary reasons why human beings require for approval and attention from other people around them, and how this is a very important part of who we are as a human being. The second part of this video, we looked at why some people might have higher self-esteem than others, and why some people might have lower self-esteem. And in this third part of the video, we're now going to look at some practical ways of finding out which relationships that we are involved in are contributing to our self-esteem being higher, and which relationships might be contributing to our self-esteem being lower. It's important you watch the first two parts of this video blog if you want to understand what we're doing here. So part 3 of this video now, we're gonna do some practical work. Now, what the central thesis of my book is, which you can find at understandselfesteem.com. The central thesis is that human beings require, just as much as we need food, human beings require, I've listed 3 things. They're kind of all the same kind of thing, different facets of the same kind of thing. But the 3 things I have outlined that I believe human beings require in order to have strong self-esteem are, number 1, approval from other people. Loads of approval from the people around us, a sense that people really approve of us as people and aren't, constantly criticizing and belittling who we are and what we're doing, but a really strong sense of approval and support from the people around us. Number 2, I've said in my book that people, I believe, require attention from the people around them. You see this so clearly in children. They constantly want you to be listening to them. They want to tell you about what they've been learning, and I actually think that adults are no different. We're just better at hiding. We're taught it's not socially appropriate to be kind of demanding attention from people, but actually I believe we still need it. And in good relationships, good social skills involve people really paying attention to what we're saying and really showing an interest. And I believe that people who are, when we're engaging with them, are really listening to us and really showing that they're interested in what we're saying, and not just constantly trying to interrupt us and say what they want to say. This is really important for our sense of self-worth. And thirdly, this is quite a kind of slightly different one. Well, in the way I'm presenting it, but the third one is delight. I really believe that we are wired to need and long for some people to delight in us as human beings, and many in the West, there's massive moves in the West to try and encourage people to be self-sufficient and not to need other people and to rise above the rest. But I believe fundamentally that's a bit of a mistake in a way, because I believe that our self-esteem is really contingent and depends on having people around us that just delight in us as human beings. And for some people, we've had so little of that, maybe from our past, from our upbringing. And then if we've had it from our upbringing, typically we then build relationships with other people who just don't really have that delight and joy about us. When they see us, they're just delighted and like, oh, it's so great to see you. I really feel great when I'm around you. And I believe that we are wired to really desire that in our relationships. So if we have relationships where people are very indifferent and they're just not really that delighted in us, maybe they're even annoyed by our presence and just criticize us a lot, our self-esteem is going to be low. So here's the practical thing we're going to do in this part of the video. What I want you to do is basically get a piece of paper, practical piece of work, and I want you to list a few people that you're in close relationship to. So maybe list the people that you're closest to first of all. Maybe take 5 people, let's say, and take the people, 2 or 3 people that you're closest to. Maybe take some people that you're friends with, that you hang out with. Maybe your best friend. Maybe somebody that you don't hang out with so much. But what I want you to do is, for each of these people, I want you to list next to each person the 3 things I've just said: approval, attention, and delight. And I want you to think about maybe the last time you were with this person, or maybe just generally how you feel about them when you're with them. And what I want you to do is to give a score out of 10 on each of those 3 things. When you think about that person, a score out of 10 firstly. So let's take person number 1. Put that person in your mind right now. Just anyone that you're in close relationship to. And I want you first of all to, if you've got a bit of paper, pause the video if you can, grab a bit of paper, do this. Just do it right now whilst you're watching this video. So take person number 1 and right next to that approval. And then give a mark out of 10 for how much you feel when you think about that person, that person approves of you as a person. Do you get a sense that they really support you in what you're doing, that they're encouraging in terms of what you're doing? Or maybe do you feel that they're possibly on the other end of the extreme, that they're not really very approving of you, they criticize you a lot, they don't seem to really be very encouraging towards you. So that would give that person a low mark. Or if they're really encouraging and you feel like they're really backing you and supporting you in who you are and the things you do, you give that person a high mark. So maybe a 10 or something high, or if it's low, give it a 0 or a 1. Or in the middle, a 5, obviously. Yeah, I suppose 1 should be the lowest. Whatever. Anyway, so that's fine. So then the second thing then for that person, you take attention. Think about how much attention they give you. It's a funny thing, and it's very easy to not realise this is happening, especially if you surround yourself with people that are always distracted, don't really pay much attention, they're very self-absorbed. But if I want you to take each of these people, or take person number 1, and just think about how much does that person pay attention to you. When you're telling them things, do they listen attentively? Are they interested in you? Or are they a bit like, oh, they're not really engaging, they're kind of like trying to do something else, you know. Maybe they don't really, maybe they don't find the things you're very interested in very interesting. You're trying to tell them about things and they're just distracted and like, oh, okay, yeah. Or maybe when you're talking, they just go off doing something else, they're not really listening, they don't answer you sometimes. So if you get lots of attention from them and they seem really interested in you and they're listening to you when you're speaking, and they don't tend to just interrupt, or maybe try and say what they want to say, maybe go away and do other things, but they're really attentive. Maybe they do then present what they want to say, but only after they've listened to you. So how much do they listen to you? How attentive is that person to you? Marks out of 10? If they're not listening to you at all, give them a 0. Third thing, delight. Think of how much that person, do you feel that they're delighted in you? Now, this is something which happens when you fall in love. Helen Fisher, she actually does lots of advice for Match.com, but she's done loads of work on what happens in the brain when you fall in love. And it's apparently what happens in the brain, the stuff it releases is very similar to when you're addicted to a drug. It's kind of, you're just addicted, you want more of that person, you just adore them. And of course, obviously in a relationship, as the relationship goes on, there's going to be less of that. But I think for it to be really, really boosting of our self-esteem, there still needs to be that sense that the person delights in us, that they're excited to see us, that they want to be around us, that they're just excited about what we're doing. So this person, how much do they seem to delight in your presence? Or perhaps at the other end of the extreme, they're just really, you've been in that relationship for a long time and they just don't really seem to care very much. Maybe they just seem to just want you around, but just to meet their own needs, but they don't really seem to care too much about you anymore. They just want you there, but they're not really fussed about you anymore. Give them a 0. So if you've done that for that person, do that with maybe 4, 5, 6 people. But most importantly, try and think of the people who are going to have the highest scores, who give you the most approval, attention, and delight. And try and think maybe of the people who are going to have the lowest scores. When you think about it, really don't seem to approve of you very much. They're quite critical of you, don't delight in you at all, and don't give you any attention. Think of some of those people and try and get some people at both ends of the spectrum. Okay. So once you've done that, actually I was going to do 4 parts, but I think we can finish this off right now in part 3. Once you've done that, very simply, the title of this video was How to Improve Your Self-Esteem Today. What I want you to do is look at the person who's scored the highest on that list. Now those people are probably the people who are gonna, I believe, when you're around them, your self-esteem is going to be nurtured. And the people who are the lowest on the list are probably doing the opposite. They may even be causing your self-esteem to be, when you're with them, to be significantly deteriorated. So what I want you to do to improve your self-esteem today, the practical thing is very simply find person number 1 on that list who has the highest score and just give them a call. Maybe go hang out with them and see if that doesn't help you feel better as a person. and if it's that person you can't get to, maybe move to number 2 on the list, but try and find someone who's high up on the list. Just go and spend a little bit of time with them. One thing I'm going to end with is this. I'm going to say something very quickly about depression, because this is self-esteem and depression are very linked. Now, when people are depressed, their self-esteem, and I'm talking from my own experience here, I've battled with serious depression when I'm younger, and a lot of this has come out of my journey to try and improve my self-esteem myself. But when you're really depressed, typically people are very depressed that they get so low that they cut themselves off from other people. And you may have got to the point, if you've got really low self-esteem, that you just don't want to go out and actually go and see a person because you feel so low, you just don't feel you can face seeing anyone. And there's one little thing, it's a big issue, and I can't really cover it in this video, but I'll just say one little thing about that, and that's this. A little story. My girlfriend's son the other day, and this is a standard thing with children. He'd been in the house playing the Xbox all day, and she said, "I want you out the house. I want you to come out and go and do something." He says, "No, I don't want." He never wants to leave the house. He wants to just stay in and enjoy the warmth of the house. And she says, "No, come on, you've been in all day. I want you to go out, come out with me." So she coaxes him by saying, "We'll do some blackberry picking." So he goes out, and then they spend 2 or 3 hours out on the downs. It's beautiful downs out near where we live. Around the horses are trained, and it's just beautiful. And by the end of the 2 or 3 hours, they watched the sunset, and they got blackberries and everything. And he said, "Pinky promise. I want to promise that we're going to do this every week." And you can see why I've told that story, can't you? Oftentimes when we don't want to do something because we're finding it really hard and we don't do it, we actually end up being worse off. And I know it's so hard when you're depressed and you're right at the bottom of that place where you just can't do anything. But I want to assure you that when you finally start, if you're going to, depression is very cyclical, and the point at which you start coming out of it is probably when you start beginning to venture out again. And you'll find that it's sort of a building effect where you go out maybe and maybe you have a bit of a good time with somebody, you start feeling a bit better. Maybe a couple of days later you do it again, and then that encourages you to go out again. But I want to suggest that as you come out of that, it's going to be because it's going to be about relationship and about building relationships again. So there's a little bit of a tangent there, but most importantly I just want to say, if your self-esteem's low, start trying to spend more time with people who score highly on that exercise. And that's the end of part 3. Hope you've enjoyed this. Please comment. Please tell me if you think what I'm saying is good, bad. Please go on my website, look at the online book I'm developing. I want this book to be developed by you guys. I want it to be a part of, as a result of what your needs are. And I want you to tell me if you think what I'm saying is bad or good, or if you want more advice on a certain thing, or you think I should have done less of something. It's down to you. Comment on this video, please. Please tell other people about it. Please come on the website. And thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye for now.